You know that feeling when you're just done? Not tired, not annoyed, but that deep-seated, simmering rage that settles in your bones and whispers, "Oh, it's on now." Yeah, that's exactly where I was when I clicked send on that email. The subject line was simple: regarding your recent disciplinary hearing. The attachment? A perfectly compiled, meticulously organized document, each page a fresh hell for Liam. Every lie he'd ever spun about me, every whisper, every snide comment, every fabricated incident, it was all there. Dated, sourced, and corroborated. He thought he was so clever, so untouchable, weaving his little web of deceit. What he didn't realize was that while he was busy flapping his gums, I was busy taking notes. And let me tell you, I had enough material to write a damn novel. He's probably in there right now, sweating through his cheap suit, wondering how the hell I pulled it off. But that's a story for another time, isn't it? Let's rewind a bit to the innocent days when I still believed in basic human decency, before Liam taught me that some people just deserve to have their meticulously constructed little worlds come crashing down. Hey everyone, I'm Ashley, and if there's one thing I've learned in my 28 years on this chaotic planet, it's that sometimes the universe just hands you a villain, and my villain, in all his smug, undeserved glory, was Liam. I met Liam 2 years ago when I started my dream job as a marketing manager at Innovate Solutions in San Diego. The office was sleek, all glass and chrome, with an ocean view that almost made the early mornings bearable. The team seemed great, and my immediate supervisor, Brenda, was a no-nonsense woman with a killer sense of humor. Everything was swimmingly, I was good at my job, I liked my colleagues, or so I thought, and I was even making decent money. I'd moved into a cute little apartment in North Park, decorated it with thrift store finds and way too many plants, and I felt like I was finally hitting my stride. Life was, dare I say it, good. Then Liam joined our team 6 months later as a senior project coordinator. From day one, he had this air about him like he was doing us all a favor by gracing us with his presence. He was tall, perpetually dressed in slightly too tight shirts, and had a smile that never quite reached his eyes, the kind of smile that made you instinctively check your wallet. He oozed ambition, and not the healthy, driven kind. No, Liam's ambition was the kind that would gladly step over a dozen bodies to get to the top, then complain about the scuff marks on his shoes. He had this way of subtly undermining people, planting seeds of doubt, making snide remarks disguised as jokes. At first, I just brushed it off. I'm a big believer in giving people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he had a rough morning. Ignorance was truly bliss, wasn't it? Our paths crossed constantly because of our roles. We were often on the same project teams, collaborating on campaigns. My first red flag should have been the way he'd forget to include me in important email chains or accidentally scheduled meetings when he knew I had a prior engagement, then act all innocent when I called him out on it. "Oh, my bad, Ashley. Must have slipped my mind. You know how crazy things get around here," he'd say, with that plastic smile plastered on his face. I just grit my teeth and remind myself that I was a professional and I wouldn't stoop to his level. What an idiot I was.
Things escalated during the Liberty Bell campaign. It was a massive project aiming to revamp a national historical landmark's online presence, and it was my baby. I poured weeks into crafting the strategy, the visuals, the whole 9 yards. Liam was assigned to coordinate the technical aspects, a role he seemed to resent, as if debugging code was beneath his lofty intellect. We were in a crucial meeting with the client, a rather stern-faced historical society representative named Miss Albright. I was presenting the user experience flow, explaining how we'd engage a younger audience, when Liam suddenly interjected. "Actually, Miss Albright," he said, cutting me off mid-sentence, "I think Ashley's approach, while creative, might be a little too unconventional for the historical significance of the Liberty Bell." I've been discussing a more traditional and respectful digital archive structure with the tech team. My jaw almost hit the polished boardroom table. Unconventional, respectful. He was implying my entire strategy was some kind of sacrilege. I shot him a look that could curdle milk, but he just ignored me, launching into a convoluted explanation of his alternative plan, which, coincidentally, sounded suspiciously like a watered-down version of my initial brainstorming ideas he dismissed weeks ago. Miss Albright, bless her heart, looked utterly confused. We somehow salvaged the meeting, but the damage was done. Afterwards, I confronted him, fuming. "What the hell was that, Lamb?" I demanded, cornering him by the coffee machine. The aroma of stale coffee did nothing to soothe my nerves. He just shrugged, taking a long sip from his ridiculously oversized travel mug. "What was what, Ashley?" "I was just offering a different perspective. Healthy debate, right? Isn't that what we do here at Innovate Solutions?" He even winked. A goddamn wink! That was the first time I realized Liam wasn't just annoying, he was actively malicious. This wasn't about healthy debate. This was about him trying to make me look bad, to diminish my contributions, to steal credit. And believe me, it wouldn't be the last. This was just the prologue to the symphony of petty revenge I was unknowingly composing. What would you have done in that situation? Just let it slide? I almost did. Almost. And that, my friends, would have been my biggest mistake. But I decided that I wasn't just going to let it slide. I was gonna collect. And collect I did. After the Liberty Bell incident, I started seeing Liam's true colors everywhere. It was like someone had flicked a switch, and suddenly all his subtle manipulations, his backhanded compliments, his strategic forgetfulness were glaringly obvious. And let me tell you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. He became a master of the drive-by insult, the casual smear. He wouldn't confront me directly. Oh no, Liam was far too cowardly for that. His preferred method was the whispered rumor, the seemingly innocent concern expressed to a colleague, always just loud enough for me to overhear, always just vague enough to be deniable. One afternoon, I was in the break room, microwaving my sad desk lunch, leftover pasta, if you must know, when I heard him talking to Sarah, one of our junior designers. His voice was low, conspiratorial. "Honestly, Sarah, I'm just a little worried about Ashley's workload," he said, sounding genuinely concerned. I almost choked on a rogue piece of fusilli. She seems overwhelmed sometimes, like she's struggling to keep up with the pace. I've even heard a few clients mention delays, but I don't want to bring it up to Brenda. She's got enough on her plate. Sarah, bless her naive heart, just nodded sympathetically. "Oh, really? I hadn't noticed. She always seems so organized." "Well, she tries," Liam sighed dramatically, "but sometimes effort just isn't enough, is it? It's a demanding role, and not everyone is cut out for the pressure." My blood ran cold. Struggling to keep up? Delays? This was pure fabrication. My projects were consistently on time, if not ahead of schedule. He was actively trying to sabotage my reputation, chipping away at the trust my colleagues had in me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every interaction, every slightly off comment. And that's when the idea sparked. If Liam wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier, but not in the way he expected. My revenge wouldn't be loud or immediate. It would be quiet, methodical, and utterly devastating. The next morning, I bought a small, unassuming notebook. Nothing fancy, just a plain black one. And in it, I started my little project. Every time Liam spread a lie, every time he undermined me, every time he threw me under the bus, I wrote it down. Date, time, location. Who was present? Exact quotes if I could remember them. The context. My initial entry was about the break room incident. August 14th, 1:15 p.m., break room, Liam to Sarah. Stated I was overwhelmed and struggling to keep up. Insinuated client delays. Fabricated.
It felt strangely empowering, transforming my anger into something tangible, something actionable. It was like I was building a secret arsenal, one petty bullet at a time. The notebook became my silent confidant, my dark little diary of Liam's transgressions, and believe me, it filled up fast. He really ramped things up when a new project came along, a huge advertising campaign for a tech startup called Synapse. This was a career-making opportunity, and everyone wanted a piece of it. Brenda assigned me as the lead marketing strategist, which naturally sent Liam into a quiet frenzy of jealousy. He started leaving anonymous, passive-aggressive notes on my desk. They'd be stuck under my keyboard or tucked into my planner. Things like, "Remember to double-check your facts. Accuracy is key." Or, "Just a friendly reminder. Teamwork means sharing the workload, not just the glory." Always unsigned, always clearly from him. He even started accidentally deleting files from our shared project drive, files I had created. Of course, he'd then offer to help me recover them, acting like my savior. One particularly infuriating incident happened during a team lunch. We were at this trendy gastro pub in Little Italy, trying to impress a potential client, Mr. Henderson, a notoriously eccentric tech mogul. I was explaining our innovative social media strategy for Synapse, outlining how we'd leverage micro-influencers and interactive content. Everything was going well. Mr. Henderson seemed genuinely impressed, even cracking a rare smile. Then Liam, who had been suspiciously quiet up until that point, piped up. "You know, Ashley," he said, with that overly sweet tone that always preceded a verbal dagger, "that's a really ambitious plan. Almost too ambitious for a startup, perhaps. I mean, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, do we? Especially with Mr. Henderson's high standards." He then turned to Mr. Henderson, flashing his best corporate grin. "I've actually been developing a slightly more realistic and cost-effective phased rollout for the social strategy, focusing on measurable, incremental growth, just to manage expectations, of course." My blood pressure skyrocketed. He was openly contradicting me, subtly calling me incompetent, and essentially pitching his own version of my strategy right in front of the client. Mr. Henderson's smile faltered, replaced by a thoughtful frown. The energy in the room shifted. It took every ounce of my self-control not to reach across the table and dunk his perfectly coiffed head into a bowl of artisanal truffle fries. I managed to steer the conversation back on track, emphasizing the scalability of my plan, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Later, back at the office, I scribbled furiously in my notebook. September 5th, 12:45 p.m., Little Italy Gastropub. Liam undermined my Synapse social media pitch to Mr. Henderson, implying my plan was too ambitious and over-promising, pitched his own realistic alternative, attempted to discredit me in front of the client. Every entry in that notebook fueled my resolve. It wasn't just about documenting his lies. It was about understanding his patterns, his methods, his weaknesses. He was predictable in his pettiness, and I was learning to anticipate his moves. The more notes I took, the calmer I became. My anger transformed into a cold, calculated patience. I knew he was building towards something bigger, something that would aim to completely derail my career. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that when he finally made his grand move, I would be ready. What he didn't realize was that every lie he told, every insidious whisper, every attempt to tarnish my name wasn't weakening me. It was strengthening my case. It was giving me more ammunition. And I was collecting it all.
The weeks that followed were a masterclass in psychological warfare, Liam style. My little black notebook was rapidly filling up, a silent testament to his relentless campaign against me. He wasn't just spreading lies anymore. He was actively trying to isolate me, to make me feel like an outsider. He'd conveniently forget to invite me to team brainstorming sessions or accidentally schedule meetings that conflicted with my lunch breaks, knowing I often used that time to connect with other departments. One particularly egregious instance happened right before the big quarterly review meeting.
I was putting the final touches on my presentation, which detailed the incredible progress we'd made on the Synapse campaign. Liam, ever the lurking shadow, sauntered over to Brenda's office, leaving the door slightly ajar. I heard his voice, hushed but clearly audible. "Brenda, can I just voice a slight concern about Ashley's presentation for tomorrow?" he began, his tone dripping with fake reluctance. "I'm not sure she's fully grasping the financial implications of some of her proposed strategies. I mean, we love creativity, but at what cost, right? I just worry she might be a bit loose with the budget figures." My blood boiled. Loose with the budget figures? I had meticulously reconciled every single expense, run projections 10 different ways, and even found ways to save the company money. This was a blatant attempt to make me look financially irresponsible, a cardinal sin in our line of work. Brenda's response was too low for me to catch, but Liam's follow-up was crystal clear. "Exactly. So I just thought you should know. I've taken the liberty of putting together some more conservative projections, just in case. Always good to have a backup, wouldn't you say?" I wanted to storm in there, notebook in hand, and expose him right then and there. But I held back. No, not yet. The petty ending I envisioned required a grander stage, a more public unmasking. I calmly walked back to my desk, my hands trembling slightly, and added another damning entry to my notebook. October 1st, 4:30 p.m. Brenda's office, door ajar. Liam to Brenda. Stated concern about my loose budget figures for Synapse presentation, implying financial irresponsibility. Claimed to have prepared some more conservative projections to undermine my work. The quarterly review meeting itself was tense. I delivered my presentation flawlessly, anticipating some of Liam's likely jabs and preemptively addressing them with solid data. Brenda seemed satisfied, and even some of the senior executives nodded approvingly. Liam, sitting across the table, seethed silently. His chance to rescue the budget with his conservative figures never came. It was a small victory, but it fueled my determination. He didn't give up, though. Oh, no. Liam was nothing if not persistent in his villainy. He started spreading rumors about my personal life. I was casually dating a guy named David, an architect I'd met at a friend's barbecue. Nothing serious, just having fun. But Liam, being Liam, twisted it into something insidious. I overheard him chatting with a group of colleagues by the water cooler one morning. "Did you hear about Ashley and that architect guy?" he asked, his voice low and laced with false concern. "Apparently he's got quite the reputation. A real player, you know. I just hope Ashley knows what she's getting into. She seems so innocent." The implication was clear. I was either stupid or I was just as bad as this supposed player. It was a classic smear tactic designed to subtly diminish my character and make me seem less trustworthy, less professional. My notebook gained another entry and another and another. Each lie, each insidious comment, meticulously recorded. He was even bold enough to start subtly sabotaging my work directly. He'd accidentally send outdated versions of my reports to clients or mistakenly omit crucial attachments from emails I'd drafted. When I confronted him, he'd feign shock and profusely apologize, always blaming a system glitch or my terrible memory. The infuriating thing was, without concrete proof, it was just my word against his. And Liam was very good at playing the innocent victim.
The incident that finally pushed me over the edge, the one that made me realize my petty revenge needed to escalate from documentation to execution, happened just a few weeks before the big annual Innovate Solutions Gala. This gala was a huge deal, a chance for all the employees to mingle with executives, clients, and potential investors. It was a networking gold mine and a chance for top performers to shine. Brenda had hinted that I was being considered for a significant promotion, a director-level role that would put me on the fast track to executive leadership. Liam, of course, was also vying for it. I was working late one evening, finalizing a presentation for an upcoming board meeting. The office was mostly empty, save for a few other stragglers. I stepped away from my desk to grab a coffee, leaving my computer unlocked for just a moment, a mistake I would regret, but one that ultimately sealed Liam's fate. When I returned, something felt off. My cursor was hovering over a file I hadn't opened. I dismissed it, thinking I was just tired. The next morning, an email went out to the entire department. It was from a generic internal email address designed to look like a company-wide announcement. The subject line was chilling. Urgent security vulnerability detected. The email then went on to warn employees about a recent security breach caused by an unauthorized data upload from a compromised personal device. And then it mentioned my name. Not directly, but it described the compromised device as being linked to a user in the marketing department identified as Ashley R. It was vague enough to avoid direct libel, but specific enough that everyone knew exactly who it was pointing to. It was a thinly veiled accusation that I had somehow jeopardized company data, a career-ending offense in the tech world. Panic flared in my chest, quickly followed by an ice-cold fury. There was no security breach. There was no compromised personal device. This was Liam. This was his grand finale, his attempt to completely obliterate my chances at the promotion, at my career. He used my unlocked computer to send that email from an internal account, then fabricated this entire story. The sheer audacity, the calculated cruelty of it left me breathless. I knew in that moment that the time of quiet observation was over. My notebook, now thick with his lies, was ready, and Liam was about to learn that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should truly fear. He thought he'd set a trap, but what he'd really done was hand me the exact key I needed to unlock his carefully constructed downfall. What do you think? Was this just a bridge too far? Was I right to finally unleash the petty beast? Because believe me, the beast was about to be unleashed. The internal email about the security vulnerability hit the office like a sonic boom. Whispers followed me down the hallways. Colleagues who had been friendly now averted their eyes or offered terse, uncomfortable greetings. Brenda called me into her office immediately, her face grim. "Ashley, what is going on?" she asked, gesturing to her computer screen where the email was prominently displayed. Did you access company data from a personal device? Is there something I need to know?" I looked her straight in the eye, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Brenda, I can say with absolute certainty that I have never, not once, accessed company data from an unsecured personal device. And I'm quite sure there's no security vulnerability." She raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Then where did this email come from? And why does it specifically point to you?" "I don't know who sent it, Brenda," I lied, my voice unwavering. "But I have a very strong suspicion, and I believe this is a deliberate attempt to sabotage my reputation and my chances at the promotion." She leaned back in her chair, observing me intently. She was shrewd, and I could tell she was weighing my words, comparing them to the general buzz in the office. The seeds of doubt Liam had sown were bearing bitter fruit. She told me she'd look into it and advised me to keep a low profile until things were sorted out. Keep a low profile? My entire career was on the line.
Later that day, I found Liam at the coffee machine looking entirely too pleased with himself. He caught my eye and offered that infuriating, smarmy smile. "Rough day, Ashley? Heard about that internal email? Nasty business, security breaches. Hope it all clears up for you." I just smiled back, a cold, predatory smile that I hoped conveyed exactly how little I was amused. "Oh, I'm sure it will, Liam," I said, my voice sweet as poison ivy. "Everything always comes to light eventually, doesn't it?" He actually flinched. Good. That night, my apartment in North Park, usually a sanctuary of calm, felt like a war room. I spread out all the pages from my little black notebook on my dining room table, a chaotic tapestry of Liam's treachery. Each date, each time, each fabricated accusation, each petty undermining, it was all there, laid bare. I needed to present this in a way that was undeniable, irrefutable, and utterly damning. I spent hours transferring the handwritten notes into a digital document, organizing them chronologically, categorizing the types of lies, professional incompetence, financial irresponsibility, personal character attacks. For each incident, I added any corroborating evidence I could think of, specific project names, client names, dates of emails that showed my actual performance, even a few screenshots of my impeccable project timelines that directly contradicted his claims of delays. For the security breach email, I pulled up the internal server logs, a trick I'd learned from one of our IT guys, bless his tech-savvy heart, to show the exact time and IP address from which the email was sent. It was his computer's IP address. Bingo! The goal wasn't just to prove his lies, it was to paint the complete picture of a calculated, sustained campaign of defamation and sabotage. This wasn't a one-off mistake. This was a pattern of malicious behavior designed to destroy my career. The next day, I didn't go to Brenda. No, Brenda was just a stepping stone. I went straight to human resources. Specifically, I scheduled a meeting with Miss Jenkins, the head of HR, a formidable woman with a reputation for being tough but fair. She had a no-nonsense demeanor and eyes that missed nothing.
I walked into her office carrying a slim, professional-looking binder. Inside was the meticulously compiled document, each section tabbed and clearly labeled. I sat down, composed myself, and began my story. I didn't start with accusations. I started with my journey at Innovate Solutions, my passion for my work, my positive contributions. Then I introduced Liam, calmly and objectively, detailing how his behavior had gradually changed. "Miss Jenkins," I said, my voice even, "I wouldn't be here if this were just about personality clashes or minor disagreements. This is about a sustained pattern of professional sabotage, character assassination, and most recently, a direct attempt to jeopardize my standing within the company and my career." Then I opened the binder. I've compiled a detailed account of Liam's actions dating back to 3 months after he joined the company. I presented the first section, falsehoods regarding professional competence. I walked her through each incident, starting with the Liberty Bell campaign, then the overwhelmed comments in the break room, all the way to his attempts to undermine my sign-ups presentation to Mr. Henderson. For each point, I referenced the exact page in the binder which held the detailed account and supporting evidence. Miss Jenkins listened, her expression unreadable, occasionally nodding or making a note. Her gaze was sharp, taking in every detail. When I got to the loose with budget figures incident, I showed her the actual budget reports highlighting how my strategies had saved the company money, completely contradicting Liam's whispered accusations to Brenda. And then, I continued, moving to the next tab, we have the attempts to damage my personal character and isolate me professionally.
I laid out the rumors about David, the deliberate exclusion from meetings, the anonymous notes. It all sounded so childish on its own, but presented as part of a larger, insidious pattern, it painted a chilling picture. Finally, I got to the pièce de résistance, the security vulnerability email. This, Miss Jenkins, I stated, my voice hardening, was the final straw, an attempt to create a completely fabricated crisis that would directly implicate me and ruin my career prospects. I have reason to believe Liam sent this email from his own computer during a period when my desk was briefly unattended, using an internal account he likely accessed through my unlocked computer. I then presented the IT logs, highlighting the specific IP address and timestamp. I paused, letting the weight of the evidence hang in the air. The room was silent. Miss Jenkins closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, her gaze now radiating a cold, focused anger. Not at me, but at the sheer audacity of Liam's actions. Ashley, she said, her voice low and measured, this is comprehensive and deeply disturbing. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I assure you we will be taking this very seriously. She didn't need to say more. I knew that very seriously in HR speak meant Liam was in for a world of pain. I had presented an undeniable, irrefutable case meticulously built on his own petty, vindictive actions. He had spent months digging his own grave, and I had merely provided the shovel. The sweet, delicious irony of it all? What he thought was a covert operation to destroy me, I had turned into a meticulously documented confession written by his own hand in the form of his lies. And the best part? He still didn't know. The trap was set. Now it was time for the spring to snap. What kind of satisfying petty end do you think Liam deserves? Because I had a few ideas brewing.
The HR meeting felt like I had just diffused a bomb, but the explosion was yet to come. I walked out of Ms. Jenkins' office feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilarating triumph. The ball was officially in their court, and I knew Ms. Jenkins wasn't one to drop it. Liam's downfall was imminent, but the waiting game was almost unbearable. Every time I saw him swaggering around the office, oblivious, it was like a tiny, exquisite torture. He'd even stopped by my desk, a picture of false camaraderie, and said, "Heard Brenda's still looking into that email thing, Ashley. Tough break. Hope they don't blame you." The audacity. I just smiled, a little too widely, and said, "Oh, I'm sure they'll find the real culprit soon enough, Liam. The truth always has a way of coming out." He looked genuinely puzzled, which was immensely satisfying. The next morning, the office was buzzing again, but this time the whispers weren't about me. Liam had been called into a meeting with Brenda and Ms. Jenkins first thing. The door to the HR office was firmly shut, and a hushed tension hung in the air. I saw Sarah, the junior designer Liam had tried to manipulate, glancing nervously towards the closed door. Our office manager, a sweet woman named Carol, walked past my desk and gave me a small, knowing smile. The wheels were turning. The meeting stretched on for what felt like an eternity. I tried to focus on my work, but every ding of the elevator, every muffled voice from the hallway made me jump. Finally, after nearly 2 hours, the HR door opened. Brenda emerged first, her expression unreadable. Ms. Jenkins followed, her gaze sweeping the open plan office before settling on Liam, who looked like he'd just seen a ghost. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped, and that infuriating smugness had completely vanished, replaced by a desperate, trapped animal look. He walked directly to his desk, avoiding contact with anyone, and started stuffing his personal items into a small box. A few colleagues exchanged glances, but no one spoke. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rustle of Liam's belongings. He looked up once, his eyes meeting mine across the office. There was no anger, no defiance, just a raw, horrified realization. In that moment, he knew. He knew I had played him. He knew I had collected every single one of his poisonous darts and turned them into a lethal weapon. The message was clear. He had underestimated me, and it had cost him everything. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a gesture of disbelief and utter defeat. I just offered him a polite, almost sympathetic nod. Petty? Absolutely. Satisfying? Beyond words. Miss Jenkins then approached Liam's desk. "Liam," she said, her voice caring just enough to be heard by the curious ears around us, "we'll need your company laptop and phone. Your access to all company systems has been revoked, effective immediately." He handed them over, his movements slow and defeated. Then, two security guards, who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, quietly escorted him toward the elevators. He didn't say a word, didn't argue, didn't even look back. He just walked out of the office, his box of pathetic belongings clutched to his chest, his corporate climb ending not with a bang, but with the whimpering disgrace of being walked out like a common thief. The silence after he left was palpable, a mix of shock and relief. Brenda then sent out a brief, professionally worded email stating that Liam was no longer employed by Innovate Solutions, effective immediately, and wishing him well in his future endeavors. It was corporate speak for he got fired, and we're glad to see the back of him. My petty revenge, however, wasn't quite finished. Oh no, that would have been too simple. My goal was not just to get him fired, but to ensure that his reputation as a snake followed him, subtly, insidiously, like a bad smell. Remember those conservative projections he claimed to have prepared to undermine my Synapse budget? The ones he told Brenda he had just in case? Well, turns out he had prepared something.
Not a full financial breakdown, but a series of spreadsheets filled with overly pessimistic market analyses, deliberately low growth projections, and inflated risk assessments for the Synapse campaign. He was ready to present them as his backup if my plan ever faltered, making him look like the prudent one. After Liam was escorted out, I subtly made sure that a few of these spreadsheets, slightly mislabeled to look like my own drafts, a small, devious touch, somehow ended up in the shared project folder for Synapse. I then accidentally mentioned to a couple of key team members during a casual chat something like, "Man, I hope my initial growth projections for Synapse aren't too high. I was just looking at some older drives, and some of the market analyses in there made me a little nervous." I then casually pointed them to where these drafts were. What did they find? Liam's overly pessimistic, almost fear-mongering alternative projections, disguised just enough to cast a shadow of doubt on his judgment, not mine. The subtext? Liam was not just undermining, he was a fearmonger, someone who saw problems everywhere and lacked vision. He was the kind of person who would stifle innovation, not encourage it. The real petty icing on the cake, though, came a few weeks later. I secured that director-level promotion Brenda had hinted at, complete with a significant raise and a shiny new corner office with an even better ocean view. The Synapse campaign under my leadership was a runaway success, exceeding all expectations. At the celebratory happy hour Brenda threw for the team, everyone was toasting my success. As I meanwhiled, I overheard a conversation between Brenda and Miss Albright, our client from the Liberty Bell campaign, who was also present. Brenda was singing my praises, recounting the success of Synapse. Miss Albright smiled, then leaned in conspiratorially. She said, "I'm so glad we went with Ashley's original strategy for the Liberty Bell. I remember that other young man, Liam, he tried to push a much more uninspired approach, said Ashley's was too unconventional. I'm glad we trusted our instincts on that one. It just goes to show you some people just don't have the vision. Brenda nodded, a faint, knowing smirk on her face. Indeed, Miss Albright, indeed. Liam, wherever he was probably still trying to explain why his conservative approach was actually superior, while my unconventional vision was celebrated. He thought he was spreading lies to hurt me, but all he did was create a meticulously detailed record of his own character flaws. He didn't just lose his job, he lost his reputation, quietly and completely. His lies became the very foundation of his downfall, meticulously cataloged by the woman he tried to destroy. The best part, he still doesn't know how I did it, he just knows I did. And that, my friends, is the most devious, dark, and utterly petty revenge of all. So tell me, was I wrong for taking notes on every single one of his lies? Was I wrong for orchestrating such a quiet yet utterly devastating downfall? What would you have done when faced with a Liam in your life? Let me know in the comments below. If you've ever had to deal with a manipulative jerk, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of sweet, sweet revenge, and share your own experiences in the comments. And remember, sometimes the best justice is served cold with a side of meticulous documentation.